Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Welcome to Consider Islam. Live with Kenny Bomer, an affiliate and founder of the Consider This TV network. Any views, actions, or comments made by panelists during this broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of CTTV network hosts or affiliates. This channel and its affiliates do not claim any right over any of the graphics, images, or songs used in this video that are protected under copyright by other individuals or organizations. All rights are reserved to the respective copyright owners. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. The works on this channel are protected under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, of 1998, which amended the existing U.S. copyright law to address important parts of the relationship between copyright and the Internet. Now here is your host, Kenny Bomer.
Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon everyone who's watching now or in the future. Welcome to Consider Islam. And my name is Kenny Bomer, and I do bear witness that there's no God other than Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his final servant and the seal of all prophets. Peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So look at this. Look at this nonsense. Transgender inmate impregnates 2 female prisoners. It's not funny. It's not funny at all. It's disgusting. And we're going to get into that here momentarily, but I want to make sure that people can hear me clearly because I am away from home right now. I'm out doing on an inspection contract, filling an inspection contract. So I'm away from home right now. So my internet service here at this hotel is not very good in the evening for some reason. It comes in, it goes out, and comes in, it goes out. So if you can hear me clearly, please let me know. If you don't mind, I'll wait for a response in the chat. Make sure that you can hear me, inshallah. And then we'll proceed. Okay, great. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Stuart. Walaikum salam to you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I see Brother Issa Vincent. Thank you, brother. Assalamu alaikum to you. Good to see you. And so, we're going to talk about a few things. But before we do that, I want to make an announcement. This coming Saturday, I'm going to be engaging in a moderated debate with a Christian. He's been on the channel before by the name of Clifford Dunn. And we're going to be debating the topic, the Quran, Word of Allah, or Satan. That'll be this coming Saturday, July 30th at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time for people in the United States. Obviously, that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for people on the East Coast. And people in the UK, if you're watching from the UK, you're 5 hours ahead of us. So it'll be a little bit later for you, obviously. But we're going to be debating the topic, the Quran, Word of Allah, or Satan, myself and Clifford Dunn. And I believe Brother Abi Yazid, C.L. Edwards is going to be moderating that debate, inshallah. So be sure to tune into that this coming Saturday, once again, July 30th at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, inshallah, God willing. So this character here is one of the people that I mentioned in my book. Came across this article yesterday. I think it's a relatively new article. I didn't check to see what the date was on it, but I haven't come across this article before. But I do mention this particular individual in the book, and I may read over that little section here shortly, just momentarily in a moment. But I want to read this article before we get started, and let's go ahead and get started. Let's read it. So the headline for this article says transgender inmate impregnates two females in prison and then transferred to another facility. And so it says a transgender inmate was transferred to another corrections facility by authorities in New Jersey after two female inmates became pregnant at the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women, according to the Department of Corrections on NewJersey.com. Reports Demi Minor, 27, was real. It says it reports that Demi Minor, this is this guy's name. Obviously, this is a male, claiming that he's a woman and being housed with women in a women's prison, and then winds up impregnating them. Anyways, it says Demi Minor, 27, was relocated to the Garden State Youth Correction Facility, which is mind-boggling because in one of the previous shows we were talking about the same issue, the transgenderism and so forth, and they're preying upon women and children. And now instead of putting this biological man, in a male prison, taking him out of the female prison and placing him in a male prison where he belongs with adults, they instead put him in the Garden State Youth Correctional Facility, which is mind-boggling. It's disgusting, and he's already had an opportunity to go to a woman's prison and impregnate two of these female inmates, and now they're going to put him in a facility with youth so he can prey upon them, apparently. So let me read more of this article here. Bear with me one second. Okay, let me go down to it. Or have they? Bear with 1 second. It seems that the website has changed this for this story since yesterday because it wasn't presented like this the way it is now. So let's see what we can find out here. Okay, let's try to look at this link. Okay. Bear with me as it comes up. All right, so maybe this one will do better. Okay, here we go. So it says, again, Demi Minor, 27, was relocated to the Garden State Correctional Facility in June to reside in the vulnerable housing unit within the prison for young adults, said Dan Speranza of the Department of Corrections, the NBC News reports. Speranza certified there were other trans women, Speranza certified three other trans, quote unquote, trans women. Obviously, these are biological men, but three other trans women are in the housing unit, even though the prison primarily houses men. Well, these quote unquote trans women they're men, and so they're housing men. And this character was placed in this facility. It says Minor's transfer from the Edna Mahan Correction Facility for Women results from the state settlement with the American Civil Liberties Union of New Jersey to provide housing for transgender inmates according to their chosen gender identity as opposed to their biological sex. So the American Civil Liberties Union is fighting for these people based on how they feel and how they think and based on their claims, and totally negating and casting aside what their biological sex demonstrates, what their biology demonstrates. So it says presently the facility houses 27 transgender inmates, according to New Jersey Advanced Media. It says Minor wrote a blog post on the Justice for Demi website. Obviously, this is this guy Minor. Okay, so someone in the chat let me know at what point that I cut off. And I do apologize because I'm at a hotel and the internet here is horrendous. So, can you hear me in the chat? And how long have I been? What is the last thing you heard me say? Okay, thank you, African sister. Assalamu alaikum to you. What's the last thing you heard me say? 5 minutes ago? Wow. We can hear you. But what's the last comments that you heard me say? And I do apologize. It's the internet here, and I can't do anything about it. But I do apologize. Okay, so let me just read the last part of this article again, just quickly. Okay, so it says minors transfer from the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women results from the state settlement with the American Civil Liberties Union of New Jersey to provide housing for transgender inmates according to their chosen gender identity as opposed to their biological sex. So a person can just call themselves whatever they want, and they're going to house them according to whatever they claim that they are. It's ridiculous. Presently, the facility houses 27 transgender inmates, according to New Jersey Advanced Media. Miner wrote in a blog post, the same character here that you see on the screen. Matter of fact, let me see if you still see him on the screen. You might not. No, you don't see him on the screen. Let me put him back up there so you can take a look at this character. All right, this character here that you see on the screen right about now is a man who has impregnated 2 female prisoners that he was housed with. It says so. Miner, the same guy here that you see in the picture, Miner wrote a blog post on the Justice for Demi. His name is Demi Miner. So someone made a website for this character. And on July 15th, he made a post on a blog that says that the facility placed, quote unquote, her on suicide watch after she attempted to hang herself, quote unquote, and that she, quote unquote, claimed that the guards refused to have a female Department of Corrections officer strip search her, according to the New York Post reports. So he wanted a female to strip search him after he's already impregnated two women inmates at the other facility. So he goes on to say that the New Jersey Department of Corrections have violated my right to be safe and free from sexual harassment. So from sexual harassment by putting me in one of the most violent youth correctional facilities. Miner wrote. Okay, that's what he said. And he goes on to say that while living here at the GYSC, I have found myself under attack by young inmates who are immature and just plain ignorant towards a person like me. It says a previous post said that Miner was violently removed from the female prison and beaten. The Department of Corrections would not provide a comment on the accusations other than that they were investigating it. They go on to say that the New Jersey Department of Corrections cannot comment on any active investigations and that the department has zero tolerance for abuse, and the safety and security of the incarcerated population and staff are of critical importance. It says that Miner is serving a 30-year prison sentence for manslaughter and is eligible for parole in 2037, according to the Washington Post. All right, so they're locking biological men up with, which is the only type of men there are. There's only biological men, obviously. They're locking men who claim that they're women. They're locking them up with female prisoners. And this is a huge problem. I mentioned this in my book. I mentioned this character in the book briefly, very briefly. I don't go into much detail about it, but I'm going to read just a couple of paragraphs where I address this in the book in a chapter. Actually, it's actually part of the conclusion of the book. But it says in February 2019, an inmate at the Logan Correctional Facility in Central Illinois filed a lawsuit after, quote unquote, after she said that she was raped by a transgender inmate. Now, this is the female person who was raped by a male inmate, a so-called transgender woman who raped her. So it says, again, in February 2019, an inmate at the Logan Correctional Center in Central Illinois filed a lawsuit after she said that she was raped by a transgender inmate who was claiming to be a female. 2 female inmates at the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility in Clinton, New Jersey, were also impregnated by a biological male. This guy that I just read the article about, biological male who self-identifies as a female with a penis, as reported in an article in the Washington Times in April 2022. Another article published in May 2020 said the United Kingdom Ministry of Justice revealed that inmates who identify as transgender are responsible for a rate of sexual attacks that is exponentially higher than their population of the population of women's jails and prisons. At the time, the Daily Mail estimated that although trans women, quote unquote, trans women who are actually men, made up 1% of the 3,600 female jail population, they were to blame for 5.6% of sexual assaults there. So less than 1% of the population were to blame for 5.6% of the sexual assaults there. So this is an ongoing issue. It's not going to end. It's going to get worse, and it is getting worse as we speak. The push to promote these gender ideologies is still going on. They're still trying to come up with different ways to push it, and they're doing it as though it's some a political movement. They're doing it like it's a religious movement, and they are serious about it. And if you don't get on board with it, you're the bad guy. If you don't accept falsehood over truth, you're the bad guy. If you don't say what they want you to say, you're the bad guy. And so that's what my book is about. Your right to self-identify, my right to disagree. Do we have a right to disagree? Based on our religious convictions and based on what science and biology and proven facts say about what distinguishes a man from a woman, a male from a female? Do we have a right to voice that? Not according to them, we don't. You either stay silent or you say what they want you to say. That's all there is to it. Otherwise you're the bad guy. And this is a very serious situation, and we've got to do something about it, and we've got to come together to do something about it. If you'd like to help me in particular do something about it, my book will be published on September the 5th, and you could do so by joining my book launch team. You could do that by sending me an email at info@kennybulmer.com and just say, I want to be on the book launch team. Sign me up, however you want to reward it, but just contact me and let me know that you want to be a member of the book launch team, and I will respond with an email about how to do so. It doesn't require any investment of anything other than just a little bit of your time to do that. And again, you could do so by sending me an email at info@kennybulmer.com. The book, again, will be released on September the 5th, 2022. It'll be available on Amazon and inshallah. So if you'd like to combat this evil and help me to do so, you can do that by joining the book launch team, and simply, and by doing so, I'm going to send you a free copy of the book, a free paperback copy of the book. Every member of the book launch team will receive a free, actually two copies. You'll receive two copies, but we'll talk about that in the email that you send me if you'd like to join the book launch team. But you're going to receive, as a member of the book launch team, you'll receive a free paperback copy of the book and so forth. So if you'd like to do that. Now, if you would like to join the panel and give your opinion or make any comments about this, you could do so by clicking on the link that I'm about to provide. All right, so bear with me 1 second. Yeah, African sister, send me an email at info@kennybulmer.com. Brother Issa, again, info@kennybulmer.com. And I will respond with an email and tell you some things. And I think Brother Issa was a member of the book launch team for the previous book, as a matter of fact, if I remember correctly. But you can do it again, inshallah. And just send me an email at info@kennybulmer.com. And I will respond as soon as I can. So if you'd like to join the panel and give some feedback about this article that we just read, or have a brief discussion about whatever, please bear with me 1 second. You can do so by clicking on the link that I'm about to provide. All right. That I'm about to provide in 1 second here. All right. All right. Okay, so it's going to be going across the bottom of the screen, but I'm also going to post it in the chat. All right. All right. So if you'd like to join the panel, say hello, or talk about this transgender issue, or talk about the book launch team, or whatever you want to talk about, feel free to do so by clicking on the link that I just posted in the chat, inshallah. And I'll wait for a few minutes to see if someone comes on. And if not, we'll move on to something else. But yeah, but this is serious, man. This is serious. Now, one of the verses of the Quran that I mentioned in the book, I'm going to read it real quick. Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verses 119 to 120. Now, this is a conversation that Allah was having with Satan after he cast him out of paradise. And Satan responded by initially saying, because you've cast me out, or because you've cast me astray or sent me astray, I will lie in wait for man on your straight path, and I will attack from before them and from behind them, from their right and from their left, and you will not find most of them to be thankful to you. And the conversation is again expounded upon in Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4. And Allah says, cursed by Allah, Satan said, and surely I will lead them astray, and surely I will arouse desires in them, and surely I will command them, and they will cut the ears of cattle, and surely I will command them, and they will change Allah's creation. Whoever chooses Satan for a guardian instead of Allah is verily a loser and has suffered a tremendous loss. Satan only makes them false promises and deludes them with empty hopes. Truly, Satan promises them nothing but delusion. A brief excerpt from my book about this topic and talking about this verse says that, I'm going to read it real quick. It says, there were no branches of science or studies of genetics and embryology in the 7th century Arabia. There were no high-powered microscopes or cloning of animals taking place like there is today with the advancement of modern technology. So, what did Allah, blessed and exalted is He, mean in the following verse when mentioning people cutting the ears of cattle in particular? The comment was made directly after Allah cast Satan out of paradise due to his rebellion. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And again, that line that I'm talking about there in the book is verse 119, where it says, I, Satan, will command them, and they will cut the ears of cattle, and surely I will command them, and they will change Allah's creation. Now, I go on to say in the book, people in the 7th century used to cut the ears of cattle as part of their superstitious dedications to their idols, while people in modern times conduct cloning experiments by cutting away tissues from the ears of animals, bulls in particular. Both examples prove the truth revealed by Allah, blessed and exalted is He, in the verse of the Quran above that I just mentioned. Again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. In the 1990s, Dr. Jerry Yang worked at the University of Connecticut to refine the cloning of cows and bulls through the use of adult cells harvested from the animals. Dr. Yang collaborated with Japanese scientists in 1998 to clone a prize bull with cells cut away from the animal's ear. Okay, and so just like in the days of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where they were cutting the ears of animals, of cattle, in the 1990s, Dr. Jerry Yang, a professor with the University of Connecticut, was working with Japanese scientists in 1998 in order to clone a prize bull with cells that were cut away from the animal's ears. The resulting clone proved that viable cells were relatively easy to obtain in their ongoing efforts to quote unquote improve efficiency in cloning cattle for size and weight, and high milk production in what they deem to be favorable genetic traits. So obviously they're not satisfied with the creation of Allah. These are human beings that are trying to better what Allah has already designed, trying to take the cells from the bull's ear and clone another replica of that animal and create other cattle in order to increase the size and weight and milk production of these animals, right? And so in the days of the Prophet ﷺ in the 7th century, they were cutting the ears of cattle. And here we are in modern times, and again, they're cutting the ears of cattle. That shows that the message of the Quran is universal, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. And so it goes on to say in my book, the resulting clone proved that viable cells, once again, are relatively easy to obtain in their ongoing efforts to improve efficiency in cloning cattle for size and weight and high milk production in what they deem to be favorable genetic traits. And I go on to say, it is as if to say human beings do not need our Creator, blessed and exalted is He, because we're so self-sufficient that we can create on a whim. However, they often fail to mention the bizarre results of their experiments as they attempt to defy the natural order of Allah's creation, blessed and exalted is He. And now if we apply this and we look at what's going on in current times with this transgender issue, and human beings that are not only trying to clone and replicate Allah's creation of animals through cloning, but they're also changing Allah's creation of the human being itself through, cosmetic costumes and through medical costuming and through physical mutilation and through cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers and all these things, trying to change and alter the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stuffing implants into people's bodies and injecting this and injecting that, chopping this off and chopping off that because they're not satisfied. And what does the verse that I mentioned say? I'll read it again. What does it say? Very clearly, Allah giving us signs that are clear for us to comprehend and ponder and reflect on. And again, in Surah Nisa, chapter 4, verse 119 and 120, now think about this as it applies to the cloning of animals and to this whole transgender nonsense. Cursed by Allah, Satan said, and surely I will lead them astray, and surely I will arouse desires in them. Right? These desires for what? To be something different, something other than what Allah created them to be, because they're not satisfied with themselves. And surely it says, and surely I will command them, and they will cut the ears of cattle. They did it in the 7th century. They did it in 1989. They're still trying to do it. And I will command them, and they will change Allah's creation. And they're doing it. Let me, for these women, they're chopping off perfectly healthy breasts and getting some type of fake, male anatomy and somehow attaching it to themselves. And men are stuffing themselves with fake breasts, getting breast enhancements, and not even enhancement, but getting stuffing silicone into their chest to try to make themselves a woman. It's ridiculous, man. And so it says, and surely I will command them, and they will change Allah's creation. Whoever chooses Satan for a guardian instead of Allah is verily a loser and has suffered a tremendous loss. Satan only makes them false promises and deludes them with empty hopes. Now think about these transgender people, and think about these people who are trying to clone animals and trying to make them better than what Allah has already created them to be. They're operating on delusion. They're operating on false hopes. They'll never achieve what they're trying to achieve. It's impossible. They'll never do it. That's why the suicide rates for these transgender people is 19 times higher for people who go through these transitions, is 19 times higher than people who do not. It's 19 times higher. And on average, people in this who suffer who are quote unquote living these transgender lifestyles, the statistics prove even before, during, and after the so-called transition that their suicide rates remain the same at about 41%. 41% in their lifetime of these transgender people will either commit or attempt to commit suicide. That's what the statistics prove. Before the transition, during the transition, after the transition, that proves that they're trying to make themselves happy based on what Satan is promising them. Satan makes them false promises and deludes them with empty hopes, it says in the Quran. Truly, Satan promises them nothing but delusion. So they're living in an imaginary world of make-believe that we don't have to participate in, and we should not participate in. And if you're in the community and you see a man dressed as a woman, you should refer to him as a man dressed as a woman, because that's the truth. That's the reality. So if we don't do that, if you come across a man dressed as a woman, and because you don't want to hurt his feelings, you don't have to be rude, but if you start calling him Shelly and or Pamela or whatever he wants to be called, because he's pretending that he's a woman, and you pretend along with him by endorsing, giving him an endorsement by calling him the name of a female, then you're putting his desires in before Allah's creation. Because if you can see clearly, you see his Adam's apple, you see his big feet, you see his big hands, you know that he's a man, but you're still calling him Shelly, then you're more concerned about what that part of creation, that created being, thinks and how they feel than what Allah has thinks about it. So we don't have to settle for that, and we should not settle for that. We don't have to be rude. We don't have to try to oppress anyone or do them any injustice or harm them any way, promote any harm against them. Of course not. But we should not allow ourselves to be oppressed by giving in to these false ideologies and these evil, they're very evil ideologies, straight from Satan. And that's what Allah has revealed this in the Quran. It's amazing. Chapter 4, verses 119, 120. Read them, ponder on them, reflect on them, and how they apply to what's going on with the cloning of animals and what was going on once again in the days of the Prophet, where the polytheists, the pagans, were cutting the ears of animals and using them for their superstitious reasons to worship their false deities. And in modern times, they're cutting the ears of animals to get the cells from the ears to clone and try to reproduce and make other animals, because they're not satisfied with what Allah has created. Human beings in these so-called transgender characters are changing and modifying themselves through physical mutilation and through medical costuming, and they're not satisfied. For one, it's arrogant. It's arrogant for groups of doctors and so forth to think that they can do better than what Allah has done, right? By trying to clone animals and so forth. And it's arrogant for a human being to say, despite my biological sex, I'm such and such. I'm something different than what Allah has created them to be. So I see Brother Isa is backstage, and I'm going to bring Brother Isa on. All right.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Kenny.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. How are you?
I'm all right, brother. How are you?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. It's been a long time. Been a while.
Yeah. It's been almost 2 years since I last saw you.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, I met Brother Isa when I was on went to do some speaking engagements and do some street dawah along with Brother Isa and some other brothers in New Jersey and New York, and that's where we actually met in person. Alhamdulillah. So it's good to see you, brother. How you been?
I'm doing pretty good. I recently came in contact with my family again. Got married. My son is getting married, and I'm about to be a grandfather.
Alhamdulillah, beautiful, beautiful. Allah's blessing you. That's great. That's great. Good to hear.
Yeah, which brings me to this transgender issue. I'm really, really upset about it. I mean, it's unbelievable how they have this agenda, and they're literally force-feeding it down people's throats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was reading an article a couple of days ago about a kindergarten teacher who's making it a priority to teach LGBT issues in her classroom.
Yeah.
And then she turned around and said that she's scared because she's afraid that her students' bigoted parents are gonna force their kids to come straight again, and that she knows her kids and she knows their sexuality and their sexual preferences.
Yeah.
These are 5 and 6-year-old children. What do
Yeah.
they know about sexuality?
Yeah. I
And
know.
you're teaching them sexuality in the classroom? They should be learning how to read and how to write,
Yeah.
not how to be gay.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. What they're doing is as early as pre-K, they're giving them handouts that I talk about this in the book as well. That are called the genderbread person and also the gender unicorn. And I go through the details about those things in the book. I have a matter of fact, I have a chapter. The fourth chapter of the book is called the genderbread person, where I go through and I talk about all the stuff that's happening in the school systems, and how the teachers are actually being actually trained by um, uh, Planned Parenthood and so forth, these different organizations that are actually training them on how to use this gender ideology in the classroom and to be gender affirming and so forth, and accepting of these ideas that when someone comes into the class and says that they're um, the opposite sex, that they're supposed to nurture that and to promote that idea and to help them with their transition, even without the parents knowing it. They have what's called gender closets, where the kids can come to school, by example, and go into the gender closet, and the gender closet is full of clothes, boys and girls' clothes. And when they get to school, they come to school. A little boy come to school dressed in, like a little boy, but when he gets to school, he goes into the gender closet and changes into a dress or some type of little female attire. And for the rest of the day, instead of calling him Johnny, they call him Joan. And he I'm losing my signal over here. Anyway, so they send these little boys into the gender closet, little boy in the gender closet, and he goes in as Johnny, he comes out as Joan or Joni, and the classroom, the teacher, all of his students, the people at the school, they all treat him as though he's a little girl. And at the end of the day, he goes back into the gender closet and changes back into the original clothes that he wore to school, and goes back home to mom and dad, who are looked at and really spoken about like they're transphobic and they're the enemies because they are raising what they have, which is a little boy, by example. And so yeah, it's crazy, man. It's
It really is. It's insane.
yeah, it's really happening, and it's in the chapter 4 of the book, I break all that down. Talk about it even sporadically in other places as well, because it's such a wide issue from pre-K into major universities all over the world. This is being pushed and it's being promoted, and the teachers are being trained on how to be gender affirming. Just gender affirming and promoting these transgender ideologies. If they speak out against it, matter of fact, they can't speak out against it, because if they speak out against it, they're fired. I mentioned a story about a PE teacher in one school, middle school teacher, who because of his Christian faith, um, he refused to refer to these so-called transgender kids as anything other than what their biological sex proves them to be, and he was reprimanded and put on leave of absence and had to go to court and fight and so forth. And I mentioned that in the book as well. So this is a spiritual battle that we're fighting. It's truth versus falsehood. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that before the day of judgment, that the man who is speaking the truth will be looked upon as though he's a liar, and the one who's telling a lie will be looked upon if he's the one speaking the truth. And that's what we're seeing today.
Yeah,
Uh, you know,
greatly. I've noticed that as I started reading the Quran 2 years ago, because I used to be a Christian, and before that I was Jewish. So I've been all over the place trying to find my own identity, and somehow Allah chose me to become a Muslim, and I'm so grateful because I can actually see what's going on, and I can see how truthful the Quran is. I mean, I've read things in the Quran that It's unbelievable. I'm watching it happen before my very eyes.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I was mentioning that verse that I read a second ago, Surah Nisa chapter 4 verses 119, 120, where it's to me it's amazing because you know I had to look up, when I was studying the tafsir of these verses, I wanted to look up and see what was going on and how these verses would have applied to the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I come to realize that they were cutting off the ears of these animals, like I mentioned in the book, and saying, and dedicating them for super.
Mhm. Brother Kenny?
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm back or not.
Now you're back now.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. The internet here keeps cutting in and out, cutting in and out. So I apologize to everyone for that. But
Yeah, your last word was you was studying the Tasfir.
yeah, so when I was studying the tafsir, I wanted to find out what was going on in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the 7th century, and come to find out that the polytheists of that time were cutting off the ears of animals and using them as for superstitious reasons to worship their false deities and gods and so forth. And again, in current times, they're cutting off the ears of animals and getting the cells from the ears and trying to replicate them. They are replicating them and cloning animals, right? As I mentioned
Mhm.
earlier. Okay, so that applies in the verse, and then it goes on from there. It doesn't just stop with the animals. It says that Satan says, "I will command them, and they will change Allah's creation," and that's what they've done. The human beings are are disfiguring themselves in order
Mutilating
to
their bodies.
appease their own desires, right? Yeah, and so that's what Allah says in the Quran that I will. It says that Satan says that he will uh, instill these desires in them, and cause them to do these things, change Allah's creation and so forth. And inevitably, when it boils down to it, they're still unhappy because down deep, it doesn't matter if a man is walking around in a pair of high heels and a dress with some breast implants. He knows down deep that he's a man. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He knows that he's a man. It doesn't matter if he chopped off his male anatomy or not. He knows that
Hmm.
he's a man. And a lot of these people transition after about 10 years or so, they start regretting it, and a lot of people detransition. And there are some stories that are surfacing about detransitioners, but what they try to do, the transgender movement tries to suppress those stories, and they attack those people who talk about their detransition because they admit that they made a mistake, that they wish
Hmm.
that this gender affirming care and so forth that they were exposed to from sometimes even from their parents, that they wish that people would have told them the truth and told them, hey, no, look, you need mental help. You don't need physical help for how you think and feel. You don't need physical help. You don't need to chop up your body and do things to your body. You need mental help. You need to go and sit down with a counselor, a therapist, and a psychiatrist, whatever, and talk about these issues instead of mutilating your body. Obviously, how you think and how you feel is not a physical issue. That's a mental issue. Unless your body is in pain, that's a different story. But this transgender issue is all mental, and it's based on people's feelings. It has nothing to do with the body, other than someone being dissatisfied with what Allah created them to be. Obviously, for whatever reason, and a lot of these people are actually homosexual, and the way they cover that up is by insisting that, oh, instead of dealing with the fact that they know that the homosexuality is wrong, they know it internally. They know it, right? But instead of dealing with that, they try to justify it by saying, well, I should have been, a man that's homosexual. Well, I should have been a woman. I'm actually really a woman because I'm attracted to other men, and they try to justify their sin by covering it up, by
It's by saying
mutilating the
that
body.
Allah
I'm
made a mistake.
losing my signal here, but it's just crazy, man, and it's getting worse.
Yes, I've heard that. I heard this
You
woman
still
tell me that
there,
she made a mistake.
or am I not there? Yeah, man, the signal here is bad.
So, like I was telling you, I met a sister who had told me that that God made a mistake with her, that she was supposed to be born a man
Okay,
because she's
like
attracted
right
to
now
females.
the signal, yeah, keeps up and down. The bars on the
Yeah, I keep
signal.
losing you. Brother Kenny? Brother Kenny?
Okay, so I
Okay,
keep
you're
having
back.
this internet problem over here. Uh, yeah, I do apologize about this internet problem here. So, brother Vincent, Issa Vincent, um, man, it's good talking to you, and I do look forward to get an email from you about the book launch team.
I'm gonna send it in a little while, right after I get off with you.
Yeah, yes, brother. I don't know if you, inshallah. Yeah, send me an email and I'll respond to it, tell you some things, and we'll take it from there, inshallah.
All right,
So I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream because of the internet problem. But thank you, brother, for joining me on the panel. It's good
no
talking to you
problem.
and seeing your face. And you're welcome to join me anytime
I
you
will
see
too,
me.
brother.
As a matter of fact,
Thank
inshallah.
you so much.
So I want to
Assalamu
thank
alaikum.
everyone else for watching. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Walaikum salam. There it goes again for the internet issue. Okay, so I do apologize about the internet problem here. I'm at a. If you'd like to be a member of the book launch team, once again, you can send me an email at info@kennybulmer.com. Send me an email at info@kennybulmer.com, and I will respond with a few things, some information, and wow, this internet's crazy. Okay, so anyways, I do apologize once again. Send me an email at info@kennybulmer.com and help me fight this falsehood, inshallah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I do bear witness there's no God other than Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his final servant and the seal of all prophets. Ashhadu Allah ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Listen, all right, inshallah, please pray for me, and I will pray for you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on each and every one of us on the day of judgment, and may He make ease for our families and our friends in this life, and give us the highest levels of paradise in the next. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.